Give me your moment, your turning point moment from this season when you said to yourself, "Oh no, this team can win it all, and and they can do it dominantly." What was that game? Was it a specific opponent, a specific moment during a game? What was that?
It
What was that
was
moment when you said to yourself, "Oh no, we're for real"?
it was a Cincinnati game. It was a Cincinnati game because I still didn't know what Cincinnati was, right? You still think that they're capable and they can be pretty good. I know they Cincinnati slow starts every year it seems.
Mhm.
So I felt like that they were even at that point. We played them. I thought, yeah, this is a team that's going to wind up digging themselves out of the hole and they'll be in the playoffs. But I thought the way the secondary played in that game, and then when I saw Cooper DeJean make that tackle on fourth down on Jamar Chase, um, I said to myself, I said, "This is a good defense. This is a really young, good defense, and they come to play." Uh, and you combine that with your offensive line and your running game, I think you have something there. Everybody, and Dan Silly, like I go on a show, and I'm arguing with him all year. He'd always say his question every week: "Do you think the Eagles are built to win a Super Bowl?" And I said, since when in NFL history did not having a good defense or run game and not turning over the ball not be a formula for winning? It's
Mm.
always been a formula for winning, and that's what they were doing. Um, so I think that Cincinnati game was the first time I felt like, not offensively, but I felt like that defense was good enough to win, and I already had felt that the offense was. So I would say that Cincinnati game.
Yeah, I would have to agree with you. For me, it was definitely the Cincinnati game. Because there are moments in football games where your defense has to do something. I guess the word is special. And
Yeah,
you mentioned the perfect play, that Cooper DeJean stop at 4th and 1 on Jamar Chase. That was a special
hmm
play down
yeah,
because of the down, the distance, the quarterback, the receiver. It was open field. I mean, that was a very that's a defining play for guys in their careers. That was a defining play for that defense, right? It spoke
right.
about how disciplined they were, how well coached they were, how prepared they were. You mentioned how at the very least for the defense, that was the moment where you felt like, okay, we got a Super Bowl caliber defense. The offense faced its fair share of criticism throughout the season, not really about the running game, but more so about the passing game.
Yeah,
What was that defining moment for you where you said to yourself, okay, this offense can get it done on the big
the New
stage?
Orleans New Orleans game. It was a New Orleans game. What Barkley had to me, see, I just never doubted that they could pass the ball. That to
Okay.
me
So
was
so
was
so
never
so
an
you so
issue.
you
Like
have
I
more faith in
never
the
bought in it. Yeah, I
okay,
never bought
got
into
it.
it. I thought it was ridiculous. Like, okay, I thought when we saw Barkley, make that big run versus the Saints, and we end up winning that game. I mean, to me, that was the perfect example of what I'm talking about because you have a running back, he breaks that right, but then when Jalen has to move the ball down the field, what does he do? He moves the ball down the field with the
Not many
big
people
pass
will
to
pick that
Goddard.
game 500. Not many people will
I,
pick that
I
game.
I know, but to me, see, to me, the passing game, I wasn't ever worried about. I felt like if we need to do it when we need to do it, we can do it. But when I saw the running game and I saw Barkley break it, and seeing what we've already had seen from him during the year, I was like, did this offensive line and this running back are good. And when you can run the ball the way they can run the ball with Barkley, I'm sorry, it's just not that big. You're not going to have a problem passing the ball. And remember, I don't think Devontae Smith got hurt that game. I don't know if AJ Brown even played that game.
He didn't.
You know, but when the Eagles needed to go down the field and move the ball, Jalen Hurts hits Dallas Goddard across the middle for a big play. And so to me, I think it was more that I knew how nasty that running game with that offensive line was going to be. And I didn't have doubts about the passing game the way other people did.
Yeah. That's interesting that you say the Saints game because that was one of their more herky jerky offensive performances, right? A lot of
Yeah,
the offense really got generated in that fourth quarter.
right.
But yeah,
But that's the
for,
thing,
yeah,
right? That's the thing. Your offensive line wore him out. Saquon Barkley, just you could see like how he looked at, he was going to have a monster year. And then fourth quarter, Jalen Hurts, fourth quarter when the game's on the line, he'll find a way to get the passing game done. And he'll make the play, and he did. And that's what that's when I thought, yeah, we're good offensively. Defensively, I had a lot of questions still. Offensively, I was good.
I like that. So, okay, we've covered 2024 off season. We've covered the turning points for you during the regular season, defensively and offensively, right? But then we get to a point in the regular season where, despite your comfort with the defense, despite your comfort with or the confidence level in the offense, there was still a turning point for this team in general, where people completely wrote off their passing game and
Yeah,
felt like this team would be held back by the quarterback, and that was the infamous Carolina Panthers matchup.
right,
And then
right.
AJ Brown comes out and says the passing. They ask him what's
Yeah,
wrong. He says passing.
yeah,
So and then BG follows that up with a very,
right.
very damning interview on WIP. Thankfully they managed to overcome that. But when that situation was unfolding, walk me through how you were processing the information that you were getting from that Panthers game, from AJ Brown, from BG.
Well, to me, I thought, it was a bad game. Bad games are going to happen. They didn't throw the ball well. I didn't think it was the end all be all as many people did. However, when AJ Brown said what he did, and then Brandon Graham goes on the radio and says what he did, that to me was a defining moment for the coach. Because what I
Mm,
saw was, to me, are we getting ready to unravel again? Did we learn anything from a year ago? Because I think it was very similar things like that last year when we were 10-1 that unraveled this team. And would that affect it? Were we going to go back into this to this unraveling where the guys aren't happy, they're not getting along? Now we're hearing locker room stuff. Is this team about to collapse? Did this coach not learn anything? Can this coach weather the storm? Did he learn anything from a year ago, and can he right the ship? That's what, to me, that whole thing was about. It was about the head coach right there.
wow. So I guess do you feel like it was necessary for AJ Brown to say what he said? Do you feel like it was necessary for BG to say what he said? Again, you said like this was an important moment for this was an important moment for Nick Sirianni to
Mm,
put his foot down and say, we're not going to have a repeat of last season. We're not going to beat ourselves here. Do you feel
yeah.
like both AJ Brown and BG's, I don't want to say outbursts, but their
I
statements
think
were
I
necessary?
think Brandon Graham didn't. I think it just slipped out, man. I don't think he meant anything by it, like in terms of, he wasn't trying to be divisive or anything like that. I think it just came out in conversation. I think AJ Brown said what he had to say. People trash AJ Brown like,
I
oh,
don't
he
get it
wants the
personally.
ball.
I don't get it.
Yeah, he's a prima donna. This, that, the other, and then they show him talking to Jalen Hurts on the sideline. Oh, look, they're arguing. He wants the ball. Last year, if you remember, during the whole during the collapse, because 2 years ago when all this stuff kind of happened, the collapse started, and they didn't have an answer for it, right? And then AJ Brown was like, listen, I'm not talking to the media. He wouldn't talk. Remember, he goes, I'm not saying anything because, what can I say? And to me, I look at it like he was just being an honest leader, and he was putting it out there. And it was a problem. That passing game was a problem in that game. And I thought it was, to me, I had no problem with what he did. And I think Brandon Graham his whole situation was, he probably shouldn't have said that. I don't think he meant it. And to me, it was just, all right, what do you got, Nick Sirianni? What kind of head coach are you? Did you learn anything from this, or are we going to unravel yet again?
Yeah. Yeah. I would have to agree with you. AJ Brown definitely gets this weird criticism from people. And when I see people try to justify it, it just sounds like you want him to be something he's not. You want him to do things your way
Yeah,
instead of just appreciating the player for who he is and understanding that what that player, who he is what makes him the player he is on the field. Right.
right.
I don't want to take that dog out of AJ Brown. I don't want to
No,
take that passion out of AJ Brown. It's what
no,
drives him. It's what moves him. Right. It's how that young man made it from growing up in a trailer park, to being a 31,
right,
$32 million wide receiver in football. And I feel like people have a
right.
wrong sense or a wrong idea of what an extra prima donna is or what a diva is. When you really think
Yeah,
about how AJ Brown moves professionally, he's really not a diva. He doesn't make
no,
things always about him. You don't
no,
see him at every event, every party, promoting something, trying to sell you
right,
something. He's a very
right.
low key. He's typically really low key dude. He's about his family. He's about his faith. He's
Yeah,
about his children. I mean, it's a very weird thing that it's a very weird cloud that follows AJ Brown throughout the city of Philadelphia.
yeah. Well,
I have a hard time
it's
understanding it.
I think it's stereotype because he's a wide receiver. I think people are also got, I think people have, they remember what happened with T.O., who, I mean, look, you could say, well, you
Did it
want
really
T.O.
scar people that bad? 500? Did it really
I
scar
think
people
it,
that bad?
yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah. The guy was doing push-ups in his driveway. I mean, dude, it was like nothing you've ever seen before. And what was so horrible about the whole thing was you knew how good he was, and you knew if they could just focus on football, uh, you know, they would be good. I also think, people like jump to conclusions. Sometimes we got to listen to what a guy's saying, because truth of the matter is he was saying things that were right. Nobody ever asked, is he right? They said, oh, he's a prima donna, he's this, he's that, he's selfish. People wanted to trade him. Remember, people wanted to trade the guy. Are you trade him? Are you crazy? You know. So to me, nah. I think that AJ gets a bad rap, and absolutely love the guy.
Yeah, same here. All right, now let's transition to that Steelers game real quick because that's the week after. Jalen Hurts gets his fair share of criticism all throughout
Hmm.
the season about
Right,
passing.
right.
He does what he does to the Steelers. He comes out in the press conference and says, "Hey, is that what y'all wanted
Yeah,
to see?" And then
yeah,
the Washington game comes,
yeah,
and the Eagles get up on Washington big early, and he
yeah,
goes down with a concussion. And the Eagles, they try to hold on. GJ gets ejected, and ultimately they lose that game in dramatic fashion to the rookie.
yeah.
Another turning point for this team, in my opinion. You're without Jalen Hurts for the remainder of the season into the first game of the playoffs, right? When you think about that
Right.
loss to Washington and how it kind of offsetted the trajectory that Jalen Hurts was going to be on in terms of the passing game,
Mhm.
and then GJ gets ejected, right? When you think about that in and of itself, Steelers week and Washington week, what's your thoughts on the impact it had on GJ's leadership going forward? Um, Jalen Hurts, the pressure going on him going into the playoffs,
Mhm.
the overall identity for the passing game.
That you mean that Washington game
Yeah,
specifically,
yeah,
or that
Washington.
just that stretch?
Yes, yeah. So let's talk that stretch, right? Because
Right,
I feel like that stretch was really defining for the team as well.
right. Yeah, I think so. Like the Steeler game to me was like the I told you so moment, because it was like, see, if Jalen Hurts has to throw the ball, he can do it. There you go. We've seen it. Now can we like basically stop talking about it and let's focus on, that was my thought process. Now the Washington game, I said this, what I said after that game is that if they played that game 100 times, 99 times the Eagles win that game. I truly believe that game just was the luckiest game for Washington. They had so many weird things go their way in that game. And I mean, look, they won. But if there was like a 4th and 12 play, like late ended, like last play of the third quarter going forth, Jaden Daniels goes for like 30 yards. If they tackle him, the game's over. That game would have been over. But it gave him life. I just think that was a fluky game. However, I do think that the Washington Commanders would have had a better chance in the NFC Championship game if they would have lost that game. Because I think that game, if the Eagles beat Washington there with
I see where you're going.
Jalen,
I see where you're going with this.
they think, well, we got this team. We swept them without our starting quarterback. Do they take them a little bit lightly? But because of how things transpired, Washington talking about how they're just as good and all the stuff, I think it gave the Eagles a little bit, little edge in that championship game.
Like a hard reset mentally. Like a hard reset.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I like that because I agree with you. I feel like you win both of those games in the regular season. You can't, by nature, you can't help but to take that team lightly. You can't help it.
Right.
But what I was hearing surrounding that game, leading up to that matchup in the playoffs, was the fact that they never forgot that game. The Eagles, that is, that was one game on the schedule that they felt like, oh, we really handed that to them. And now the Commanders are walking around here, popping crazy as if they really pulled something off here, right? Let's just get to the playoff run, right? Let's do that. The playoff run: Green Bay wild card round, Rams divisional round, Washington NFC Championship. Let's stay there for a second before we touch Super Bowl. Walk me through how you chronicled those 3 games, your perspective on those 3 games, what you were feeling, because you're on a week-to-week basis, right? Walk me through all the emotions that you were trying to illustrate throughout that time.
Well, the Green Bay game, the Green Bay game, I felt like, I felt pretty good. I felt like we would win that game. Jalen Hurts coming back from injury will be a little sluggish, that kind of thing. But the one thing we saw right away in that game, and I thought was great, was that Saquon Barkley was not just having a good year. He wasn't just a good regular season player, but this guy has a clutch gene in him. In a big game, in a big moment, he's gonna break off a big run or a big play. And so I thought that was a real interesting way to see Barkley, because we hadn't seen him in that situation with really any playoff games before. I also think that, and the way I look at the playoffs is, I look at it as like guys like Nolan Smith's 3rd season, because if you look Nolan Smith's 2nd season, right, he had 6.5 sacks. He had 4 sacks in 4 games in the playoffs. I feel like a lot of these guys, playing all those young guys, I thought that's where it really started to show us. These guys weren't rookies anymore. They were experienced. They kind of seen things. They kind of felt things. And I thought that the defense started to play really, really good. And then if you look at that the Rams game with the snow, that was
historic. That's a historic game. That's a game you talk about to your kids like 20, 30 years from now. 500.
It was, and to watch Barkley and what he did in that game. I just think that was like, that was clutch moment, man. Those were clutch moment. And not only that, but on the defensive side of the ball, look at the development of Nolan Smith. Breaks out. Jalix Hunt starts to play. He breaks out. What about Jalen Carter? Jalen Carter does not sack Stafford there. We lose the game. All your young defensive players that played so much, finally, I thought were not rookies anymore. They were all breaking out or, starting to play at a high level. Quinyon Mitchell gets this interception against Green Bay. I mean, so, it just seemed like
Washington,
they were coming together at the right time.
You're right. Quinyon got 2 interceptions in the playoffs, didn't he?
He did, yeah.
Green Bay and Washington,
Green
right?
Bay.
Oh, yeah.
Right. That's right. And Bond had I think Bond had 4 turnovers in the playoffs as well. They were playing good, and I'm going to tell you this: a guy's name that might not have put a ton of stats up, but I thought, like I said, the soul of the defense. People don't talk enough about what C.J. Gardner-Johnson means to this team, what he did during the season, and what he did during the playoffs. He's steady, man. He is one of the keys, and having him out there, he's just steady, man. I really see him as the soul on that defense, and to me, it's not a mistake or luck that they have them. They go to the Super Bowl. They lose them. They collapse. They get them back. They go back and win the Super Bowl. I thought he was great. I thought he was great down the stretch and into the playoffs as well.
Yeah, and a lot of those young guys lean on him. I mean, the way Reed Blankenship talks about him, right? Reed loves him. The way just that whole defense is recognized. Again, like going back to that Washington game when he got ejected, I think he had a moment where he said to himself, I can't let that happen again. I'm too valuable to this team. And, the young guys look up to him, right? You mentioned how these guys weren't rookies anymore. At the level they were playing at, those rookies don't play like that on that big stage. I mean, you get to the Commanders game in the NFC Championship, and that defense forced 4 turnovers. All 3 fumbles and an interception. I mean, and they weren't like fluky fumbles like a bad snap or you just were lucky to get it out of his hand, right? No, they laid the wood. They forced those fumbles, 1 on special teams, 2 on the defensive side. The Quinyon Mitchell interception in the end zone to end the game. This defense, these young guys, the way they showed up again, we thought this offense would be the story of the year. But it ended up being this defense.
The defense. I mean, you look at it. Look how many guys in the playoffs defensively really broke out. You have Cooper in the Super Bowl, Quinyon during the playoffs with turnovers. You have, I mean, we can't forget Jalen Hunt. Jalen Hunt look how good he was in the Super Bowl.
Came up big when BG got hurt. Came in big when BG got hurt.
Huge. And I'm gonna tell you, Jordan Davis. People love to crap on Jordan Davis, but go watch the NFC Championship game when he sacks Jaden Daniels. There's a picture of him on the sideline. I think he's headbutting guys without a helmet, but there's a look on his face. There's a look on his face. I'm telling you, I felt it. It was like, man, I just felt like he was saying I needed that. I got this. You know what I mean? That was a big moment for him in his career. And you look at the way he played after that sack versus Washington. He was lights out. And then he goes right into the Super Bowl and plays the same way. I think he turned a corner also. I really do. I think he turned a corner.
Yeah, my favorite moment, one of my favorite moments from the playoffs, is doubling back to that Rams matchup before we get to the Super Bowl game. One of my favorite moments from this playoff run was Jalen Carter got his first sack in that Rams game. It was before the snow started falling. Jalen Carter sacked Matthew Stafford. It was when he picked him up, and he could have spiked him on his fucking head, but he did it. But he picked him up, and him and Nolan go back to the sideline. And I guess in order for that play to happen, Carter had communicated to Nolan, said, "Hey, I'm going to make a move here. You do you, and watch me do me." Right. And they get back to the sideline, and Jalen Carter is like, Nolan, thank you for trusting me right there. Thank you for trusting me on that play. Nolan Carter walked up to him. He said, "Boy, don't you ever say those shit like that to me ever again. You see that shit, you call it. Let's ball."
Right.
I'm like, no, these guys are different.
No.
These guys are playing at a different speed, the emotion, the energy, the zeal, like the fire. I'm like, oh no. They smell it. They not only do they smell blood, they smell that Lombardi.
They do. They did. I agree. It was quite the run, that's for sure.
Definitely. So let's get to the big one, the Super Bowl matchup, the rematch, right? Everyone was screaming, "Listen, we got to get our lick back. We owed them one. We let them off the hook."
Yeah.
Right. Only reason we lost that game is because defense didn't do their job, which I agree with.
Yep.
But we get into that game before opening kickoff. Going into that game, walk me through what you were feeling. What was your confidence level?
Oh, it was high. It was high. I in my preview prediction video, I had the Eagles winning by double digits. I had them double digits winning that game. I just thought that this is a better team. I had watched the Kansas City in the playoffs. I had watched them, at times all year, and I just didn't think they could keep up. And I thought primarily it was going to be because of the defense. Like I knew Jalen Hurts was going to do his thing. I knew that, and I thought Saquon would have had a bigger game than he did, but I wasn't worried about those guys. I knew they were going to take care of business, but I didn't think the Kansas City Chiefs were ready for the Eagles defense. So I felt good, man. I had him picked by double digits. Of course, you get a little bit nervous and all that kind of stuff. What I was worried about more than anything was a close game, and then the refs come in and screw it up at the end. So I felt like, man, we got to jump on these guys and get up big to kind of prevent anything like that.
Yeah, I agree with you. Going into that game, I had us winning by 10. Double digits for sure, obviously, but I had us winning by 10. I can't remember my exact prediction, but I know I had a dream that we beat them 31-23. But even outside of that dream, I had us beating them by 10.
Wow.
And I even made another proclamation weeks in advance. I mean, well, the moment we solidified, our ticket to the Super Bowl, that is, I made a proclamation the day after we beat Washington. I said, they're not scoring more than 24 points. I promise you that. I said, listen, the Chiefs will not score more than 24 points on the Eagles defense. They will not. They will not. Because I'm thinking about the way the defense plays out the playoffs.
Yeah.
What was it? The Commanders scored 23, right? The Rams scored what? 20?
Can't remember.
I think something like that. 20. Not like it matters.
A little more than, yeah.
But they scored somewhere around 20, 21, whatever it may be, right? And you hold the Chiefs to 22 points, and they didn't score their first points until seconds when the final seconds of the third quarter. There was a point in this game where the score was 34-0. So again, I knew we would win by double digits. You knew we would win by double digits. But did you expect that kind of ass whooping though?
No, probably not. Probably not. I thought it would have been. I thought it was going to be closer into the fourth quarter. Okay. Like what I initially said was I thought the Eagles jump out early big, then the Chiefs are going to make it a game, and then Barkley breaks the big one late to give us, cushion. That's kind of how I thought it was going to go. I didn't expect the defense to just utterly come out and run all over them. Although, I could tell you, I did not think that was as good of a Chief team as we played 2 years ago. I thought we were better. I did not worry about their run game at all. Their wide receivers, there was nothing offensively that really scared me except for Mahomes. If Mahomes can break plays and get scramble and make plays, like he always does with his arm and his feet. Those were the kind of things that worried me about him. But I didn't expect them to just be so disciplined and just shut them down. I mean, I don't think they got to midfield to like the third quarter.
Yeah, like literally. That. Yeah, the end of the third quarter. You're absolutely right.
That I didn't expect it. And I didn't expect the defensive line to be so dominant. I mean, to me, that was like it was like Jordan Davis get a sack, Jalen Hunt sack, Nolan Smith. I mean, I knew Nolan Smith. To me, Nolan Smith became a star in the playoffs. So I wasn't totally surprised that he played well. But, and then Oren Burks. I mean, we need to mention Oren Burks too, because
absolutely,
his play from the Green Bay game where he causes a fumble throughout that. I mean, he he was great. He was great.
Yeah. No, you're right. Yeah, Oren Burks definitely potentially earned himself some money, elsewhere.
He did, yeah.
The way he played in that playoffs, opening kickoff of the playoffs, forced the fumble in the NFC Championship game on Austin Eckler. He steadied the ship when the Kobe went down, man, and the Kobe was playing out of his mind. But you think about defensively with that, you spoke a lot about it already, but God, like the duress Patrick Mahomes was under in that game, he was completely out of character, right? And then he throws a pick six to Cooper DeJean. Zach Bond picks it off in their own territory. Milton Williams and Jalen Carter, completely obliterate him to force the fumble. Milton recovers it. Dog, this defense came out with bad intentions. Bad intentions.